Hey, David Brewster here with a new episode of 3 for All. This is 3 Carl Verheyen Licks from 2017, and I've had some requests to feature some of Carl's music. And for those of you that are unaware, Carl's a legendary session and studio ace, and his career started somewhere around 1969, but it wasn't until the late 70s and early to mid 80s before his name and music really started to make an impact. And around 1985, he joined forces with Supertramp and became their studio and touring guitarist. And he still, fills that role now. But then he's released somewhere around 19 solo albums, live and studio and also compilation albums. He's worked and recorded with a whole bunch of people, famously on albums, but also movies and TV shows too. So if you're not really aware of Carl's music, get ready, because he's a great guitarist. And to give you a better idea as far as his background and some of the musicians and groups that he's worked with in his career, here's an image with some of the people that Carl's, recorded with or performed with, over the years. And check out the drummers. He's worked with some amazing drummers and bassists too. Stanley Clarke and Stu Hamm are in there. Not to mention, drummers like Chad Wackerman and Simon Phillips and some phenomenal players. But then also he's worked on TV shows and movies, films like The Usual Suspects and Crow. TV shows like Cheers and Seinfeld and Scrubs. So definitely Carl's music's out there. But here's an image with some of the people he's worked with. So the licks and ideas in this episode came from a live performance in 2017, and I believe it was somewhere in Europe, but I couldn't actually find a location as far as where it was filmed or performed. And Carl was just whipping it out, the entire time. The concert went on for like an hour and 40 or an hour and 50 minutes or something like that. But he opened the show with Little Wing, and he did a vocal version, and then he started jamming and playing licks and solos and stuff. And that's where all these licks are going to come from, his performance of Little Wing. And Carl's, historically known for intervallic playing on the guitar, intervallic music. In his old instructional video back in the day, Intervallic Rock, that's what he was talking about in there. I think that was like REH Video or something. But intervallic does seem to be kind of a confusing area for a lot of people as far as the definition of what it means, because it usually just steers you back to intervals. And yes, it's related to intervals, but here's an image with my definition of what intervallic means. All right, here we go with lick number 1, and an intervallic idea right off the bat here. So this is a hybrid-picked intervallic melodic phrase, and it's over E minor, and something like this. One more time there. So it's really interesting. You can see I'm hybrid picking in there too. So it starts with F sharp, and then we're going all the way up to this high A. So that A is an octave higher than the octave for that F sharp. So we're going beyond an octave, which really lends this kind of intervallic sound that you hear like that. So that's a big jump right there. And then D to F sharp right here after that. And then B to D right there on the A to the B string. So those are big distances right there. And then right there, you're going to grab A to B on the A to B string. And then you're going to come back here, grab A to G on the B to A string. And then you're going to grab this G note and then end with D right there. And it kind of lets that final part ring. So really slow. Phrase, but it grabs your attention because you're hearing that intervallic movement between the notes, those lower notes to really high notes, and it continues to happen through the whole phrase. And to me, that's the epitome of intervallic in action right there. You're hearing this kind of movement between the notes, and there's a big distance, between the intervals. And what a cool phrase. Okay, next up we have a bluesy melodic phrase, something like this. One more time. So right there we're actually starting on D sharp and then moving to E, so that's going to imply E harmonic minor, at least temporarily at the beginning of the phrase, like that. But then by the time he gets up to that higher D, he also hit a D natural right there, but he's moved to D natural, you know, after that. So it's only that first note that's a D sharp. And you're kind of climbing up like the pentatonic highway right there, right here. Right? When you get to that D note, that's where you're going to hop over, grab B, bend that up to C, you know, a half step. Then you want to release that bend back to B. And that's where you're ending with that little shift slide to G, grab that A. And you're going to end on E right there. So really slow. Like that. A little faster. And then at tempo. Okay, next up is a slip and slide melodic phrase, and it's interesting to note that there's no vibrato anywhere, which is unusual for a melodic phrase. Usually melodic phrases have tons of vibrato, but this is something like this. One more time. So once again, we're in E minor, and he's got this kind of quick start to it with this G, A, B to C, and then after he hits that C, you know, he does a half step bend with B, which we had that in the previous lick, but we're doing something different with it, like this. Right? So you're coming up those four notes, and you're going to bend that B up to the C that you just, you know, hit at the end of that quick phrase. And then you want to release that bend. And that's where we start slip and sliding right there. So the beginning, right? Then you're sliding that G down to E, then that E down to C, and then right? So that G to E, E to C, E to B, and then you're going to slide this G to A right there. He's getting around on the fretboard. He's moving, you know, and shifting between positions big time. And then kind of setting up like the ending of that phrase. So it's an easy phrase. It's not really that hard to play. It's very expressive. And I just like the way he's kind of gliding and moving around the neck, which is really cool. The absence of vibrato is interesting too. One more time. Okay, here's a bonus lick from this live footage, and this is crazy. This is this wild intervallic phrase, and this is the epitome of what Carl's really known for with this crazy intervallic action. And this is really unusual, and I'm not going to claim this is 100% accurate, but it's pretty close. He's doing something like this. One more time. So it's all over the place, and he's skipping and jumping this intervallic, you know, leaps between the notes. So it starts right here. Right? So he's bending that D to E, and then E, G to E on the high E string right there. But then right there, he jumps back a position. Starts on that B note, then grabs D, B to A, like that. And that's really weird. Because you're coming from, and then you're doing, that's really unusual. So think of E minor pentatonic, but then you're jumping through the scale. Like that. And then after after that weird kind of turnaround right there with the anabolic action, one more time right there, you're going to shift slide that E to D and then end kind of smeared down into that G. So it's all over the place. It's crazy. It's like falling down the stairs, but you land on that G, which is on your feet right there. But like, kind of messed up somewhere in the middle there. Want to try it again? And it's just crammed in there too. I mean, it does land on the downbeat, but it's just frantic. And I love the way it skips around. You know, it's not normal at all. It doesn't sound like a normal phrase. It sounds like some alien, crazy language. Or like a computer, you know, freaking out or something like that. Cool lick. Alright, that's going to wrap this episode of 3 for All with 3 Carl Verheyen Licks from 2017. Definitely a great player, commonly overlooked, you know, unless you're aware of some of the, you know, groups that he's worked with. You know, like Supertramp. Definitely Supertramp's a great band. Even though Breakfast in America and, you know, some of their famous songs and albums were released and recorded before Carl was in the band, but he's been their regular go-to touring and session musician, you know, since the mid-'80s, so that's a long time. And there's just something about his playing style. You know, there's a blues element. I'm hearing like just little parts and pieces of like Eric Johnson, you know, hiding in there. A little bit of Jeff Beck at times. But then he definitely has his own approach with this intervallic stuff and the way he moves, you know, between notes and phrases and his licks and leads. It's very different. You know, you'll notice it like the first time you hear him play. It's like, hey, he's doing things I recognize, but the way he puts it together is very different. Very exciting stuff. So anyway, leave some feedback and comments. Please subscribe to Net Lessons, and I'll be back before you know with more content and material. Thank you.